because we published, beloved. Hello, how are you? Thank you for being
Listen,
here.
we
We pub-
outside. We
we published.
published.
You
Do
did
a little
it.
bounce.
Congratulations. This is a major accomplishment, and I hope that you are reveling in it. I hope that you are sitting in it, and I'm so excited to talk to you, Dr. Rumble, today about your book, Bibliotherapy in the Bronx. I feel like I've been waiting for this for so long, because I've been following you on social media, and so I saw you when you were talking about it and getting ready to write it, and then when you were like, "Oh, it's coming out," and so I'm just happy for you. I know what that feels like to go through all of that work and then finally be able to hold the book in your hand.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you. And I just want to say I'm not a PhD. I'm often called Dr. Rumble, and I love that,
I've
especially
been
when it
calling you doctor
comes.
forever.
I listen, I'm here for it. If somebody want to
Okay,
pay for me to get my
okay,
PhD, I'm there. But I just always want to say that because I know the tremendous amount of work that it takes to get, your doctorate, and I don't have one, and I just want
okay.
people to know that, fingers crossed one day.
Listen, I
Um
appreciate that because I've been calling Dr. Rumble everywhere. Oh, Dr. Rumble's book is out. Oh, Dr. Rumble got the book dropping. Dr. Rumble, I've been doctoring you all over the place. So just so.
That about Black people. Everybody has been doing that. Even my father-in-law has been doing that. And I'm like, Pops, you know that I don't have a PhD. He was like, well, we calling it into existence.
Listen,
Okay.
that's what I'm talking about. That's manifest. So
You
let's
know?
talk about it. Let's talk about bibliotherapy in the Bronx, and let's talk
Yeah.
about this process for you getting to. I've watched you do the kind of the countdown to the book release, and then you're living through these early days of being a published author. Tell us about it. What is it like, and how did you get here?
Yeah, it's so rewarding. So many people want to write a book in their lifetime and don't get to. So I feel so honored. Like it's one thing to have the vision for it and I've been writing this book for like 10 years. I didn't
Mm,
know at the time that it would become a book,
yeah,
but I just to be at the point now where it's like, oh my God, hold the book. Like it's one thing to get your finished copy and hold it and smell it. And it's like ASMR. I'm like, like sleeping with my book. But then other people, get their books and they start talking
yeah,
about your book and reviewing the book and
yeah,
interacting with the work. And you see how it lands with people, and it's really touching. It's really, really
yeah.
touching because so much of the work of being a therapist is within the therapy room. It's not
Mhm.
seen. We close that door for a reason. So to
Yes.
have opened up my therapy room and the way that I engage with the creative arts therapies, bibliotherapy and expressive writing, and for people to see that and be like, yo, this is dope. Like I want to try this. Or I'm
Yeah.
already doing this. Emily's giving me some
Yeah.
ideas for how to deepen my practice. Like I love hearing stories like that. There's so many Black and brown writers who've reached out to me and been like, after reading your book, I'm going back to school to become a therapist. And I'm like,
Yes.
yes. It's
I
so
love that.
dope.
So you said it took you 10 years to write it. So was this
Yeah.
something that you felt was always in you? Like, so 10 years ago, you're like, this is a book, right? Or is
Yeah.
this something that over time developed for you into a full length manuscript?
Yeah. So I just write every day. Like I'm a big journaler. I'm a big processor as a therapist. I have a practice of engaging in like ritualistic journaling after every session. It's a way for me to also um just process, I don't like finish my therapy sessions and then write my clinical notes, submit it to billing
Yeah.
and we're done.
Yeah.
I'm also a spiritual therapist, so I'm deeply
Yeah.
impacted by my clients and the energies that I interact with my clients. And so I journal after every session. Sometimes I'm
Mm.
just I keep a dream journal. I have like an ecosystem of journals. And
Oh.
so like I have like a whole storage full of journals. Like I just always journal. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting into the Blocked to Book program with Row House, and Rebecca
Mm.
Baruchi had sent out an email saying, if anyone needs a scholarship, we're giving like I think it was like 2 or 3 scholarships specifically
Wow.
for Black women. And I
Yeah.
applied and I got the
It's
scholarship. And I was like,
fantastic.
yes. And so through that program, she asked to see what I had. And I was super self-conscious because I was like, this is not a book.
Mm.
This is just like a bunch
Mm.
of vignettes
Mm.
and poetic prose and, like little
Yeah.
nuggets of my life and my
Yeah.
work. And she was like, I don't care. I want to see it. So I said, okay, how much of it do you want to see? She said,
Yeah.
send me all of it. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna think like this girl don't know what she's talking about. This is not a manuscript. But when she read it, she hit me up right away. She was like, can you hop on a Zoom call?
Mm.
So we spoke, and she was like, I'm deeply touched by what I read. And what do you envision for this? Like, I know that it's not currently in a manuscript format, but like I'm reading through it and I definitely see the book in it. What do you envision for this? And so I just told her, I was like, I want to write a book that honors the contributions of Black social workers and Black
Mm.
librarians and Black writers to bibliotherapy. I think
Mm.
that as someone who's been training in this modality for several years, there's a huge gap in the literature. I mean,
Yeah.
I also teach bibliotherapy at Queens College
Yeah.
to librarians. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
we need a book that's really going to be for us, by us, that honors our ancestral lineages
Mm.
in regards to literacy and healing through literature. And she was like, write the book, sign the contract. I'll email it to you after the Zoom call. And I was like, are you for real? She was like, yes, girl, I want your book. So literally within 24 hours, she sent me a contract.
Yeah.
And I had my lawyer look at it and he was like, yo, this is the most fair contract that I've ever seen from a publisher, actually. So I
Mm.
think, you should sign it. We tweaked a few things because I really wanted to protect my intellectual property. And also,
Yeah.
I do my own private practice, run courses and stuff like that. So I wanted that to be added, but it was a seamless process in terms of
Wow.
signing my contract. And then writing the book. And I got really
Yeah.
lucky because Row House paired me with an editor who also like respected my vision and saw the heart of this work. And she
Yes.
and she pushed the shit out of me. Can we curse on this pod?
Yes.
My Nirmala Nataraj is that girl, and she'll never tell you because she's not on social media. She doesn't
Yeah.
have any internet presence. I think she has her
Yeah.
website for editing services, but she's so low key and so quiet and quaint, and she's like super dope. And this
Yeah.
book wouldn't be possible without Nirmala. So
Mm.
shout out to
I
Nirmala.
love that, and thank you for sharing the full process. I think for a lot of first-time authors, and I'm speaking for myself as well, navigating that process is so terrifying. Like, you're like first, it's like the process of revealing your writing to strangers, and you don't know them people, right?
It's vulnerable.
It's
Yep.
vulnerable, and then there's also the process of believing that you actually have a book in you, right? That
That
the thing
part.
that you've been thinking about that have been rattling around in your head, that's an actual book, and I think for a lot of Black women in particular, we are not encouraged to tell our own stories. We're not told that our work is worth publishing, and then we don't see ourselves
Right.
reflected back often, so I think that's really beautiful, and it resonates with me as well. That's actually how my book came to be. I had an editor who said, "Write the book." And I was like, "Me?" Like, and I
Yeah.
think I said, "Am I allowed to do that?" And she was
Yes.
like, "Yes. What do you mean?" Like, "Yes, you're
Yes.
allowed." So it sounds like you didn't go through the agenting process, that you did
I would
this.
love an agent. I just haven't found someone who
Mm.
I really vibe with, and I'm just a discerning, thoughtful person. I don't like rushing
Yeah.
into relationships. So I've had opportunities, to maybe consider
Yeah.
one. You have to pay for an agent, first of all.
You do.
Second of
You
all,
get
I
cut.
want a black agent, I want a black
Yeah.
agent who also, if the agent isn't Afro Latina, I want them to have a sensibility around Puerto Rican culture, Afro Latino
Yeah.
culture. So
Yeah.
I just haven't found the right person yet. But if you're out there, holla at your girl. I'm
Absolutely,
calling you
shout out.
in.
I'll send you some information after this. I have some ideas as well. So I
Okay.
think, I really wanna talk about, where I thought you did really well was kind of the lead up to the book release, and this is somewhere where I completely missed.
Mm,
I think I had a little bit of trepidation about, making, like, repeated posts about the book and just, I felt
that's real.
weird trying to sell myself and be like, "Please buy my book, please buy my book." I didn't encourage pre-orders, I didn't do any of that, and, I think that the book may have taken a hit or had a slower time kind of growing because of that, but I think you've done a really good job of doing this without it looking like, "Please, y'all," like, right? It looks it's really beautiful, and so I think I wanna just did you come up with the strategy around how you promoted your book before release yourself? Or, like, the graphics have been so beautiful, how did you do that?
I'm so honored. That just made me like, whoo, that hit me because it's such hard work.
Yes, it is.
Um, Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
seeing the efforts and acknowledging the hard work behind that. So my husband is a marketing major. He went to Temple
Huh.
University. He's actually a veteran middle school teacher turned administrator who's like one of the best to ever do it in the classroom.
Oh,
But
okay, that's cool.
his you know what I'm saying? So his background is in marketing and
Yeah.
he worked in the New York City fashion showroom sector for several
Wow.
years.
Wow.
Before we had kids, before we got married and stuff, and we were just dating in New York City. So he's a mastermind when it comes to the psychology behind
Oh,
like marketing, visual marketing. You know, he
oh.
worked at Ricky's NYC. He was the person
Mhm.
doing, I don't know what they call it, but like he would do like the windows displays to
Yes.
draw customers in and stuff
Yes.
like that. So I run everything by my husband. He doesn't do the graphics and the captions and the things like
Yeah.
that for me. But I create everything, but I always have him look at
Mhm.
it, or I'll be like, "Hey, hon, can you like let me know what you think about the way that I'm presenting
Yeah.
this?" Or he's helped me think a lot about, just communication and
Yeah.
marketing, copywriting. Um, how do he was the one who told me you need a logo, you need a color scheme.
That's
People
right.
are attracted to like
That's right.
having consistency. And so when people see that logo or they see those colors, they know that it's your brand. So
That's
that was
you.
another thing
That's
that
right.
Row House honored. I said I wanted the book to have
Yes.
my colors. And so
Yes.
all of this is
It's
is
so
my
beautiful.
colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's all my husband, because that would have went right over my
Mhm.
head. I'm like, I'm a healer, not a marketer. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's really been crucial. And then
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of like classes, honestly, a lot of
Um,
Marty Woodard online, who does a
uh-huh.
lot of he's a genius. I mean, that brother is just so smart. And anytime he has a course, a
Yeah.
master class, a IG live, I'm like, oh,
Yes.
Marty's teaching.
Yes.
I've learned so much from Marty Woodard. April, I don't know her last name, but she is the founder of Word Stylist.
Yes, I see that.
I love her. She has a book on copy editing that she self-published.
Yeah.
That book helped me a lot because it helped me to
Wow.
think about the psychology of how you write copy that's not super cringy, where you can
Yeah.
still be yourself, but realize that you're still selling
That's someone.
yourself.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
like you said, it's cringy. You're
It's
like,
hard, yes. It's weird, it's awkward, but I also think to some degree it's just, the fact of being Black
yeah,
and, gingerly expansive, it's like, we also are just not socialized to talk about ourselves because when we do, we're told we're being boastful or that we're not humble, and so at least for me, I'm always like, "Ooh," like, I don't want anyone to think I'm, thinking I'm better than them, or I always hear from my childhood, someone being like, "You think you all that?" And I'm like,
same.
I'm just trying to tell you about my new book, right? So I
Right.
think I really appreciate that you have those kind of concrete ways of going about this that has nothing to do with all those socialization factors. Because I think that did hinder me, and I know it hinders a lot of other authors.
Yeah, well, it did
So,
hinder me, but I have an amazing therapist, so I'm really
yes,
grateful. It
yes,
hindered me too, and I just want to say something about that because that's kind of part of the shadow aspect that I had to excavate. Was like,
yeah,
I know that there's a lot of people who probably think, oh, she thinks she's all that, or why her and not me, and
yeah,
it's like, girl, why her and not me? Because
yeah.
I created the platform, I put the work in. You could do it too.
You can do it, boo boo.
You know what I'm saying? Do it. I'll support you. It's not
Do
a
it.
competition. Like, and
That's
I think
right.
that's what, whenever I start feeling that way, like, damn, like folks are giving me evil eye, or like folks might
Mhm,
think I think I'm all that or whatever. I
mhm.
remember that I'm spiritually protected and guided, baby. I remember that at the end of the day, I'm creating what I'm creating for community. It's not about me.
That's
I'm
right.
not trying to position myself as like, come to me for all things,
That's right.
whatever, bibliotherapy, whatever. Like, I'm not, that's not never how I positioned
Yeah,
myself. I've always positioned myself to be like, this is for us, by us.
that's right.
This book wouldn't be possible without community,
Without
right? Like,
comparison. That's right.
it was the community who lifted me up when I only had 200 followers, and
Mm,
referred me, like, literally NYC as my private therapy practice
yeah.
blew up because of word of mouth referral. I couldn't
Wow.
even afford a website at one point. That's why I
Yes,
started social media, because
yes,
I had my son. My daughter was born in 2020 during
yeah,
the pandemic. I couldn't go back to work after maternity leave, right? So
yeah,
like, and at that point my son was diagnosed with autism. He needed a range of services and all these therapies. Girl, I was struggling
yeah,
financially to make it
I
all
feel
work,
you. Yeah.
So it was like, at the end of the day, I just have to show up, show people the work that I do it with a pure heart, with
Huh,
integrity, how I always do the work that I do, and trust that it will carry me. And so anybody who feels like, well, she thinks she's all that or whatever, it's like, okay, sis, well, guess what? You cursing yourself, because you
right.
could have just like been part of the gang and
That's
I would have
right.
supported you and given you, you know what I'm saying?
That's right. It doesn't have to be
That
scarcity.
love.
Yeah, we don't have to do that whole only one of us can win. I'm very big on, like, if I win, we win, right?
Period,
And I think it's so
yes.
beautiful that I think that's the other part I'm hearing too, like, you consulted your husband who has expertise in this very thing, and I think that folks really need to understand how, as a first-time author, there's gonna be a lot of asking for help, right?
Yes.
Like,
You
we
have
have
to.
to ask for help. There's just so much that we don't know, and when you have people around you, like, I have mentors. I Disha feel y'all? Listen, I don't know if I can live without
Yes, I
Disha.
love me
Disha
some Disha.
I love Disha, and she's so giving, and she's so generous and kind, and when I was navigating agent things and all this, she was like, "Hey, listen, here's my advice. Here's how I would proceed. Here's some recommendations. Here's a website. Here's a," and that's the kind of thing that folks have to not only, um, be okay with asking for, but have to be okay with receiving. And
Yes.
I think that's really, really important in this process. And I think, what I want to hear from you, as you're thinking about, this book unfolding is so new, right? Have you had any surprises along the ways so far about how things have gone? Or was there anything for you that you were like, oh, I did that, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I also just want to shout out one other person who helped with my marketing, Nikki
yeah,
Sanders.
yeah,
Nikki is phenomenal. She does a lot of courses on marketing as well. So shout out to Nikki.
yes,
Um, In terms of the moments that I've had, yeah, there's been so many hiccups, right? Like being published with a small indie press. Row House is a revolutionary pub house, and there's a team of like 3 people, so sometimes communication is lagging, or there's just things that happen where you're just like, I need somebody to call me right now to give me clarity on this
right,
thing. And
mhm,
it doesn't always happen because, it's a small press. They can't work that fast. And so that was really hard for me because I'm someone who's very I like open communication. I
yeah,
like transparency. I like to
yeah,
have somebody on the line that like can
yeah,
answer my questions.
yeah.
And so my anxiety, like learning to tolerate intense anxiety in this process was probably the hardest thing for me because a lot of things I just had to like wait and see,
Yes,
right?
child.
And then with the marketing, I didn't realize I've heard Black authors say it before, and we know that our path is different and there's going to be
Yes,
different
it is.
barriers and blockages, right, to our
Yeah,
journey,
yeah,
because we know how publishing works and how white publishing is. But I didn't realize that like your publisher doesn't really market your book. It's up to you. You have to really be the one talking about it, sharing about it, and
right.
not just on social media. Like you need
Yeah,
to be in person networking, um, get the business cards, get the QR codes, right? Like I did a lot of that, like little flyers. I would put whenever I put my books in free little libraries, I would have like a
yeah,
flyer, Bibliotherapy in the Bronx.
yeah,
Like I was
yes,
just getting creative with it. But that
yeah,
that was hard because I'm like, I have a full-time practice, two
yeah,
kids, I teach. I'm like, when am I gonna have time to market the book? But really it
yeah,
was just realizing that anxiety is a part of this process. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
befriend my anxiety, move through
yeah.
it anyway, and just do the best that I can, and then trust my community to hold me up. And that's really what
Mm,
happened. On
yeah.
pub day, my community showed the F out. Like when I tell you so many posts and
Yes,
maybe people didn't even read the book yet, but they were just like, yo, happy pub day to Emely Rumble,
yes,
Bibliotherapy in the Bronx. When I tell you I cried so much on pub day, by the time the day was over, Dr. Jenn, my face was like so swollen. I was like, I need like an ice pack for my eyes because um yeah, community just really did the rest.
yeah.
And I was blessed. I am blessed
I
because of that.
love that. You dropping some listen, you said QR code, and I said, "That's brilliant. I'm gonna make a note of
Yes.
that." That's something, and I think I also, appreciate these conversations I've been having because so many of us are going about this process in so many different ways, and they're so innovative and so creative, and they don't rely on publishers or agents or whatever to do the legwork. I think that's one of the primary things I wanna get across with this podcast is, like, you gotta do the work. You write the book, but I feel like writing the book was way easier than
Talk
this.
about it. Talk about
That was
it.
the
Whew.
easiest part, if I'm being honest, right? So I think somewhere that I wanted to talk to you in particular about this because you are a therapist. But what I hear you saying, you said befriending my anxiety. I have not done that yet. Me and her are not friends.
Okay.
I'm working on it. It's a daily process.
She's, like,
Oh,
in your house and you didn't
yeah,
invite
yeah,
her
my
in,
girlfriend.
like,
Oh,
"Oh, did I open my door to you, or did you come in through the window?
why
Like,
I
why are
think
you here?"
it is. Like, and so I think I really want to hear from you because on my book tour trial, I did not take care of myself. I
Mm,
did not, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't eating well, I wasn't sleeping well. I have this thing where I can sometimes I think and we all have this, where we have routines and habits and we get good at them, but then there's a major disruption. And I think a book drop is one of those, right? And so how are you thinking about your care, your internal health? Because I'm hearing you talk about all these things that you have to do, but like how are you taking care of Emily?
listen, listen, how am I saying it early?
Yeah,
Because
child, child.
oh my goodness. I think a lot of it is just being real with where I'm at. I think we have a tendency to push ourselves, especially as Black women, because people think we're superheroes, and
Yes.
we can just push through. You're in pain,
Yeah.
okay, well you can still push through. You're feeling, overwhelmed, okay, well you can still push through. And people put us on these pedestals,
Huh.
and I think a lot of it for me has been just honoring that, you know what, today I'm not okay. In this moment, I'm not okay. In this moment, my body hurts. In this moment, my
Yes.
hips hurt. It like really
Yeah.
bringing my attention to my feeling state, to my body, really rooting myself in the present moment. A lot
Yeah.
of walking. I've been doing like nature walks, a lot of
Yeah.
crying. Sometimes I just want to
Yeah.
cry. And I don't really know why, but I'm like, you know what?
You
I
got me
just need
so
to cry.
proud. I'm like,
I just need to
I need to
cry.
cry.
I just need to roll up, to be honest with you. Like, that's just me keeping it a buck. Like, whatever I need, I don't deprive myself of that,
Yeah.
especially now. Um, and I think that that's really, really helped me. And just being honest with how difficult it's been for me to be vulnerable. And I want to shout you out because I don't know if you've read my acknowledgments,
I
but
haven't.
I acknowledge you in my acknowledgments because I just really am inspired by your voice and your work. Reading your book was so healing for me, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional because you know me, I
Me
be
too,
crying.
sis.
But the book that you wrote, you're honoring the legacy of Black women pillars, but the way
Yeah.
that you wrote it was so vulnerable because you share
Yeah.
so much of your personal story. The part that you wrote about you in the hospital, like
Oh,
I won't ever
no.
forget that chapter because it really hit me, and it brought things to the surface for me that I had repressed. When I was pregnant with my daughter in 2020, I was really sick with COVID. Like I thought I was gonna die, she was gonna die, or
Yeah.
child, we both were gonna die.
Uh,
So when I read your work, I was like, wow, look at them. Like Dr. Jenn is out here like giving us a whole ass history lesson and like showing us the real behind the impact that this work as a Black academic has had on her, on them,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
And that really just was a role model for me because there were times when I was writing that I was like, I can't
Yeah.
go there. I don't want to
Yeah.
go there. Once the book is out, people are going to read it and like it's so vulnerable and tender,
It is.
and you were vulnerable and tender, and like in your day-to-day life, you're not presenting that way. I think one thing everyone knows about you is you're about that life. Like do not play.
Yeah.
Like do not play. Do not
True.
play. And so
Yeah.
I love that about you because I wasn't expecting your writing to be so heartfelt. Like you really went into the heart space and you took us
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
man, like I just want to thank you because
Mm.
when I read Black women writers, that holds up a mirror to me, to things that like I've
Mm.
struggled to name or to get really
Mm.
specific in naming and
Yeah.
allowing myself to feel and see.
Yeah.
It's one thing too for like us to see it in ourselves, but then to write it so that others can witness us
Yes.
is really
Yeah.
tender. So thank
Yeah.
you. I knew I was gonna cry when I said
Hey,
that.
I love that. I appreciate and I also appreciate you for seeing that. I am a 6'4" tall, 250 pound Black queer person, right? And so when I move through the world, I am treated in ways that don't often allow me to be vulnerable and to show up in my fullness. And so the book
Yeah.
for me was one of the first times I said, fuck it. I'ma just this is it. I'ma lay it all out here. And my editor was so encouraging. And there were times where that 11th chapter on bell hooks, I cried through the whole thing. I cried through
I
the
know you
entire chapter.
did. I felt
Sat at the
that.
computer and listen, snot bubbles, but I kept writing, and I think that's something I also appreciate about you and your work, in that I guess we're looking at each other and mirroring each other, but I do feel like you're very honest and you're very clear, right, about what it means to exist at multiple intersections of identity right now, and how we need to lean back on these kind of ancestral ways and all these things that our body tells us about how to heal ourselves. And so I think, so many of the Black women and queer folks who are writing right now are not just thinking about sales and marketing and strategies, but they're also thinking about, how does it feel in my body to be navigating this process right now? And how do I want to make sure that I'm showing up in community with other people who will read this book, so that
Yes.
they can now have the tools and the tactics and the strategies to survive too? And
Yes.
that's why I love this. I tell people all the time, I love my job, right? I love that I get to write books and say nerdy things and then talk to other people who write books and say, I'm like, this is the best job I've ever had, you know? And
Yes.
so I think, hear from you about like the challenges that presents, because it's not easy, right?
It's
Being
not.
publicly vulnerable and honest about sitting at these intersections it's a very hard thing to do, and to do consistently.
Yeah.
So how have you encountered and navigated the challenges that come along with this work?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is making sure that I didn't sell my manuscript to a publisher who wouldn't honor
Uh,
the book that I wanted to write, right? Like I had queried the manuscript and I think 3 publishers had met with
uh-huh,
me and they had different visions for where they wanted the book to go.
uh-huh,
I knew when I met with Rebecca Baruchi, the president of Row House, that she
uh-huh,
not only understood my vision,
uh-huh.
but she respected it and she was excited and energized by it. So I was like, okay,
Yeah,
maybe this could work.
yeah.
And that was really important to me. I wanted to um even with the title Bibliotherapy in the Bronx, right? Like you get very specific in your title and your cover
Uh-huh,
design
uh,
and a lot of like because publishing is a business, it's like, oh well, you're gonna isolate certain readers. What
yeah.
readers are we
Who
isolating?
cares? Listen.
There's white people in the hood.
Exactly.
what?
But
What readers are we
that they can't learn about it because it's different from their experiences. It's
that part.
wild to me. What a strange, like, we all had to read Ernest Hemingway and Farewell to Arms, and about these
Listen, Catcher
bootleg
in the Rye and
white women. I'm like, do I need to read Pride and Prejudice? I don't think I did. I don't care, right? But we had to all read it, and had the nerve to have it on all our tests to
yep,
get into college. I'm like, this is
yep.
anyway. Let me not
Talk
digress.
about it.
But
Talk about it.
yes. And I think so I think I wanna hear more from you about this idea of where you place your book, because I have absolutely decided not to work with agents, not to work with publishers who had a different vision for my book. There was one woman who said, "You need to write this book all about being tall." And I was like, "Girl, like, sure, that's part of my life, but it's not the totality of my life." And I had to
Right.
say, even though I really respect you and I think you're brilliant, I can't work with you, right?
Good
So
for you.
how do you make those estimations about what's the right place for you and for your work?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who wanted me to emphasize my personal story were really intrigued at the fact that I'm a former foster kid, that my grandmother raised me and I was babysat by an aunt with paranoid schizophrenia, right? Like they love the pathology behind or what they perceive as
Mhm.
pathology because
Uh-huh.
I call that strength and resilience. But I think a lot of folks really wanted me to like focus more on my personal trauma. It was like, why? I'm brilliant. I have a lot to talk about and a lot to share.
Uh-huh.
And when I die, I want to leave a book behind that honors the legacy of not just the work that I did, but the foremothers, forefathers, the forethinkers and scholars and
Yes.
academics who have made me who I am. That's
Yes.
the purpose of this book. It's not to write a story that's just a Black trauma narrative, right?
Yes.
Like and I understand after working with Nirmala, like I understood why it was important to share aspects of my story to support the narrative arc of how I became the bibliotherapist that I am today.
Yes.
But Nirmala's focus wasn't on my trauma, it was on me as a thinker.
Yes.
So
Right.
if you're someone who is a healer and you use literature to help people heal, we want to tap into your mind and understand
Mm.
the origins of your creativity and the
Yes.
way that you honor and uphold Black writers and thinkers, and how
Mm.
did that make you who you are today, right? And so
Mm.
that's a different way to frame.
It
We
is.
want to hear more about your personal story. And that felt really illuminating for me because I was so protective about my story at first that I
Absolutely.
was like, I don't really see. I envisioned this book as a book that was going to be used in classrooms and
Yeah.
graduate programs. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't see how my personal story like
Yeah.
supports my intention behind the book. But after
Yeah.
working with Nirmala, I did, and we crafted a
Yeah.
book that honors my story while also sharing the history of bibliotherapy in America,
Yeah.
and Black librarians. And I also want to say that, like, because I am, multiracial, being Puerto Rican, African American, like sometimes some of my peers who are Boricua will be like, well, why did you focus so much on the Black librarianship? Like, what about Boricuas? And I'm like, I did write a lot about Puerto Rican librarianship, but the thing is that Puerto Rico was a colony. That history is inundated with so many nuances that that part of the book needed to come out because the book needed to be a
Yeah.
book. So if I started going into
Yeah.
Puerto Rican librarianship and the history of Puerto Rico to make it digestible for a reader within the context of bibliotherapy, it wouldn't be bibliotherapy in the Bronx, right? I do feel like that's a whole
Yeah.
nother book that I could write.
Yes. That's what I'm hearing.
But you know, when you're multiracial or you have these different intersections, like your communities are always gonna hold you accountable to be like, well, you
Yes.
didn't touch on this or you didn't touch on that. And it's like, no, trust me. Everybody who loves me and knows me knows I'm Boricua. I don't shy away from that. I
Absolutely.
say that I'm Black because I'm Black. You
You
know what I'm
are.
saying? Like, so
Multiple
why
things can be true.
but I do think at that intersection, there is a tension that I navigate, not just as like a person, but as a writer of like, well,
Mm.
is representation as strong across both lines? And it's like, yes,
Mm.
because it's me. I'm the one
That's
writing. I'm
right.
the person
That's
that's
right.
Black and Puerto Rican. So
That's
it's like,
right.
but
That's
you
right.
can't please everybody. But that is a tension that, I had to navigate. And there are other things that I wrote in the book that didn't make it in terms of like the relevant history, but the most important thing for me was sharing as much as I could share while making this an accessible tool guide. I wanted people
Mm.
not only to come in and understand the modality, I wanted people to actually read the book and now be able to use it.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I love that. So going through this process now, if there was one thing you could change, what would that thing be?
One thing. Change is a funny thing
Yes.
because we ain't spirit, and
No,
I
we're
think
not.
things happen and unfold the way that they're meant to.
That's right.
Um I think if I had the power, to appeal to God or goddess and say, hey, I would have wanted this to be different. It probably would have been more time. Like, I'm so overwhelmed in my multiple roles, and motherhood takes up such a tremendous amount of
Of
my
course. Of course.
capacity that, like, a lot of this, I feel like, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Dr. Jen, you making me cry today,
Hard
child.
work. This is hard work, right? This is your life's work. It's meaningful, right?
I just feel like I haven't been able to enjoy the
Mm.
immense accomplishment because it's like there's always
You're
something to
still
do,
going. You keep going. You have to keep going.
you know? So like I
Yeah.
wish I had the time to just sit in it a little
Yeah.
bit longer.
Yeah. I want to give you some encouragement though to say it gets better, right? As someone who now is a year and a half out from release day, it slows down. People pick up the book, they learn you, and the pressure comes off, right? The pressure of all the stress of writing and deadlines and get the book in front of this person and do 75 podcasts in one day. And now,
Listen.
you know, the way you are feeling right now, that is exactly how I felt last year. I can't even sit here and lie and be like, oh, no, 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 I was a mess. And 2 months after my book came out, I was in the hospital. That's how hard it was. And so,
Remember that. I lit a candle for you on my altar and everything.
yeah. So I just want to offer you some encouragement to say, I know, I get it. I empathize completely, but I also firmly believe that very soon, soon come, right, is rest
Yes.
and respite for you.
Amen.
So,
Amen. I
and I'm just
received
so
that.
excited for you, and I'm sorry that it has been so hard. It doesn't have to be this hard, and I firmly believe that the more that we write, the more that we exist in this space, the less these challenges will come up for people behind us, you know? And I
Yeah.
hate sometimes that we have to be the vanguard, um, because it's not fun and it doesn't feel good, right? Um, so is there anything else? Anything else if you wanted to tell these, first time authors who are Black and queer and disabled and immigrant and who are thinking about their stories, what would you want to share with them?
I would say read like your life depends on it.
Mm,
Read like your life depends on it. We're not just reading words, we're interacting with the stories of those in our community who were
mhm.
brave enough, courageous enough to put pen to paper and speak their truth. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't see, you may not walk into the nearest Barnes and Noble or bookstore and see tables of Black literature that's been carefully curated for you, but
Mhm.
it's out there. You just have to
Yeah,
find it, and, it's really important that we read the work of Black and brown writers because ultimately, if you've never seen it, you don't know it's possible, and
that's
so I
right.
know, like, for me, interacting with your work, interacting with, Ruha Benjamin's work,
Yes,
interacting with
Ruha.
Imani Perry,
Imani, yes.
Day, Brittany Cooper, Ebenezer
Yes.
Moore, Tamala Gordon, D. Daniel Thomas, right,
Yes.
Dr. Candace Nicole,
That's
period.
right.
So interacting with the work of Black women, Black queer writers, Black men, right? Just like
Mhm.
our people has just really
Yeah.
nourished me. Like a lot of people have asked
Yeah.
me while they're reading my book, like, girl, how like much do you read? And I'm like, I'm always reading. I
Always
read like
reading.
my life
Yes,
depends on it because it does. And I
it does.
wouldn't have been able to write this book to honor community without all of the literature that has nourished me. And so
Yes.
that's really what I would say is like read like your life depends
Mm.
on it. Treat books like medicine, build up your medicine
Mm.
cabinet.
Mm.
Um, and just trust yourself when you finally get to a point where you're ready after engaging with the work and ideas of other, respect your own mind and your own ideas, right?
Yes.
So when you're ready to sit down and put the pen to paper or sit down at that keyboard,
Yeah.
don't censor yourself, trust your voice, trust that what you have to say somebody needs to hear, and
Yeah.
baby, get that on the page because we wanna
Absolutely.
read it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I love that. I adore you. I hope you know that. Um, and I'm so excited because I know mine is on the way. And so I'm very excited. I will be posting about your book. And I know I'm going to post about it a lot because I'm one of those people who, as I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that's a nugget. Oh, that's a nugget. So I'm just excited for you. And we are published, beloved. You did it. You did it. Celebrate yourself. And this is an amazing and brilliant accomplishment. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.